I never thought I'd hear these words from my own child's mouth. Get out. I don't need you anymore. Her voice was sharp, her eyes cold. And in that moment, the daughter I had raised with my blood, sweat, and tears turned into a stranger. 3 days earlier, she had inherited $33 million. 3 days later, she was on her knees, begging me for my help. But when she slammed that door in my face, when I stood outside her mansion with nothing but the clothes on my back, a question burned in my chest. Had I failed as a mother, or had money turned my daughter into someone I no longer recognized? This is the story of how greed nearly destroyed the bond between a mother and daughter, a story of betrayal, heartbreak, and a lesson neither of us would ever forget. I still remember the exact moment it happened. The smell of fresh roses filled the hallway of her new mansion, the kind of house I had never dreamed of stepping into. Chandeliers, velvet curtains, polished marble floors. Her new life sparkled. But instead of pride, I felt something else creeping into my chest. Distance. She stood there in a silk robe, her hair perfectly styled, a glass of champagne in her hand. My daughter, my baby. But the way she looked at me wasn't with love. It was with something colder. Mom, I think it's time you stopped staying here. I need my own space, my own life. You don't understand this world, and honestly, you're holding me back. I froze. Holding her back? I had carried her through every storm. I had built her world brick by brick, and now I was nothing more than dead weight. Sweetheart, I whispered, my throat tight. I don't want to hold you back. I just want to be here for you. But she cut me off with a wave of her hand, as if I were a servant she no longer needed. You don't get it, Mom. I don't need you anymore. Not after this. And with that, she pulled the door open. The night air hit my face. My suitcase, already packed, though I never packed it, was sitting by the door. She had planned this. The slam of the door echoed in my chest. I stood there, stunned, staring at the grand house glowing behind me. My daughter, my flesh and blood, had chosen money over me. But deep inside, a question whispered, what had I done to deserve this? Little did I know, the answer wasn't about what I had done. It was about what money had done to her. I never was standing outside mansions. For most of my life, it was cracked apartment walls, leaking ceilings, and bills that stacked higher than the groceries in my cart. I raised my daughter alone. Her father left before she could even say her first word. I worked 2 jobs during the day and cleaned offices at night. I was so tired sometimes I'd fall asleep on the bus and wake up 3 stops too far. But no matter how exhausted I was, I always made sure she had warm food on the table, even if it meant I went hungry. I still remember the nights I would tell her bedtime stories, even though my throat was dry and my body ached. I wanted her to dream bigger than the life we had. I wanted her to believe she was meant for more. And she was. She was smart, sharp, fierce. When she was 9, she came home crying because some girl at school laughed at her secondhand shoes. I knelt down, held her face in my hands, and told her, "Baby, your shoes don't make you less. They carry you forward. And one day, you'll walk into rooms where no one will dare laugh at you." She wiped her tears and promised me she would make me proud. And she did. She was top of her class, always striving for more. She wanted everything I couldn't give her. A big house, fancy clothes, a life without the shadow of struggle. And I wanted it for her too. I wanted her to have everything I never had. So I worked harder. I skipped meals. I patched up the same coat winter after winter so she could have a new one. I turned every dollar into a dream for her. When she got into college, I cried. I sold my wedding ring, my last memory of the man who abandoned us, just to pay for her textbooks. I told myself it was worth it. And when she walked across that graduation stage, her eyes shining with ambition, I felt like maybe, just maybe, all the nights I went without were finally worth something. But something else grew in her too. Pride. She hated being reminded of our past. She didn't want people to know where she came from. When I told stories about her childhood struggles, she would roll her eyes. "Mom, stop embarrassing me." I thought it was normal. After all, who wants to remember being poor? But what I didn't realize then was that she wasn't just ashamed of her past. She was ashamed of me. The little girl who once clung to my hand at night had grown into a woman who saw me as a symbol of everything she wanted to escape. And yet, even knowing that, I loved her. Every fiber of me loved her. I would have given her the world if I could. What I didn't know was that the world would come to her in the form of $33 million. And that was the moment everything would shatter. The phone call that changed everything came on a quiet Tuesday morning. I was folding laundry in my tiny apartment, humming softly, when my daughter burst through the door with eyes wide and lips trembling. "Mom, you won't believe this," she whispered, almost breathless. "What is it, sweetheart?" I asked, dropping the towel in my hands. She paused for a moment, as if the words themselves were too heavy to say out loud. And then, "Dad's family, they left me everything, $33 million. I froze. Her estranged father, the man who had walked out on us like we were nothing, his wealthy parents had always turned their backs on me, treating me like dirt under their shoes. I hadn't heard from them in years, but now, suddenly, they were gone and they had left their entire fortune to her. I didn't know how to feel. On one hand, I was relieved. My daughter would never have to struggle the way I did. She wouldn't know hunger or cold nights or empty wallets. She would be safe, secure, free. But deep down, a strange unease gnawed at me. Money that big, it doesn't just change lives. It changes hearts. But at first, though, she was radiant. She hugged me tight, crying against my shoulder. "Mom, we'll never have to worry again. I'll buy you a new house, a car, everything you've ever wanted." And I believed her. For a moment, I let myself imagine it. No more sleepless nights over bills, no more patched up shoes, no more exhaustion carved into my bones. Maybe after all the years of sacrifice, life was finally rewarding us. But the glow didn't last. Within days, she was different. Her voice sharpened when she spoke to me. Her new phone buzzed constantly with texts from strangers who suddenly called themselves friends. She started going to parties in glittering gowns, surrounded by people I didn't recognize. When I asked her about them, she scoffed. "You wouldn't understand, Mom. These are people who matter." People who matter? Hadn't I mattered? I tried to remind her of who she was, where she came from. "Sweetheart, don't forget, money can disappear, but family doesn't." Her eyes flashed with irritation. "Stop lecturing me. I know what I'm doing." But I could see it. The way they whispered in her ear, the way she laughed at their jokes while ignoring me. They were sinking their claws into her, and she was letting them. One night, she came home late, stumbling through the door with her expensive heels in her hands. I was waiting, worried, sick. "Where have you been?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Out," she snapped. "And I don't need to tell you everything. I'm an adult, Mom. You're acting like a burden." A burden. The word sliced through me. "I'm your mother. I've given you everything. How can you say that?" She looked at me with eyes that weren't hers anymore. Cold, distant, as if love itself had drained out of her veins. She said flatly, "You don't get it. I don't need you anymore. Not now, not ever." And then she pointed at the door. My suitcase was already packed, waiting. I hadn't packed it, she had. I stood there, shaking. staring at the girl I had raised, the girl I loved more than my own life, my daughter, my only child. "Please, don't do this," I whispered, my voice breaking. But she didn't flinch. She opened the door and said the words that would haunt me forever. "Leave. You're nothing to me now." The slam of the door echoed like thunder, leaving me outside in the night, air with nothing but silence and the sting of betrayal. And in that moment, I thought my world had ended. But it hadn't. Because in just 3 days, hers would. The night I was thrown out of my daughter's mansion was the longest night of my life. I stood there on the cold pavement, clutching the handle of a suitcase I hadn't packed, my hands shaking too hard to even zip it shut. The air smelled of money, freshly cut grass, polished cars, roses lining the driveway. But for me, it was the smell of rejection. My own daughter had slammed the door on me. The little girl who once begged me to stay by her side when she had nightmares now wanted me gone from her life forever. I walked for hours, no destination, just step after step, my tears blurring the world around me. It felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath my feet. Finally, I ended up at a friend's house, an old neighbor who still remembered the days when I carried groceries up 3 flights of stairs with a baby on my hip. She let me sleep in her spare room, no questions asked. I was grateful, but the shame burned through me. I lay on that borrowed bed, staring at the ceiling, asking myself the same question over and over. Did I raise a monster? I thought about every sacrifice I had made, every meal I skipped, every night I worked double shifts, every tear I swallowed just so she could smile. And now, this was my reward. Anger clawed at me. Grief drowned me. Shame suffocated me. But above all, the pain of betrayal cut the deepest. The next few days, I tried to pick up the pieces of my life. I scrolled through my phone, and there she was, my daughter, in photos on social media, draped in diamonds, sipping champagne, surrounded by strangers who cheered her name, strangers who hadn't carried her through sleepless nights, strangers who hadn't given up everything to raise her. And yet those strangers were the ones she chose over me. I couldn't stop myself. I whispered at the screen, "Do they love you, baby? Do they really? Or are they here for what you can give them?" But of course she couldn't hear me. Then came the whispers. I heard from an old friend who worked in the city. He told me my daughter's spending was out of control, buying cars she didn't even drive, signing contracts she didn't understand, pouring money into business opportunities that were nothing more than scams. At first, I didn't want to believe it, but then I saw it for myself. Pictures of her at reckless parties, headlines about her new friends and their shady reputations. She was spiraling, and I wasn't there to stop her. 3 nights after she kicked me out, my phone rang. It was past midnight, and the sound sliced through the silence of my friend's small apartment. Her name lit up my screen, my daughter. For a moment, I just stared at it, my hands frozen. After everything she had said to me, after the way she looked at me like I was nothing, did I even want to answer? The phone kept buzzing, desperate, insistent. Finally, I picked it up. Her voice was frantic. "Mom, please, I need you." And just like that, my world flipped upside down again. When I heard her voice on the other end of the line, it wasn't the confident, proud voice of a millionaire. It was trembling, broken, almost like the little girl I once knew. "Mom, please, I don't know what to do." I sat in silence, my heart torn in 2 directions. Part of me wanted to rush to her side instantly, to wrap her in her arms like I always did when she scraped her knees or woke up from a nightmare. But another part of me, the wounded part, wanted to hang up, to let her feel the emptiness she had left me in. I swallowed hard. "What happened?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. There was a pause and then a sob. "Everything's gone wrong.
The people I trusted, they used me, they stole from me, and now I don't know who to turn to. I closed my eyes, fighting the storm inside me. The people I trusted. How ironic, because just 3 days earlier, I was the one she had cast aside like garbage. I didn't answer her right away. I told her I needed time. She begged, but I ended the call, my hand shaking as I placed the phone on the nightstand. That night, I barely slept. Memories flooded me. The little girl clutching her doll, whispering, "Don't leave me, Mommy." And now she was the one begging me not to leave her.
The next day, the rumors became reality. News spread fast. Her so-called business partners had vanished. Her bank accounts were bleeding and creditors were circling like vultures. I saw the headlines. Heiress loses millions overnight. I scrolled through the photos that flooded social media. She looked like a ghost of herself. Makeup smudged, clothes wrinkled, her once bright smile replaced with hollow eyes. The girl who thought she was untouchable was crumbling in front of the whole world. And then it happened. On the third day, there was a knock at the door. I opened it slowly, and there she was. My daughter. But not the same daughter who had thrown me out. This girl was shaking, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her once perfect hair a tangled mess. She clutched her phone like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Mom?" she whispered, her voice raw. "Please, I need you. I have no one else." I froze. I didn't move. For a moment, I just looked at her. This broken figure standing where my proud daughter had once stood. And all the memories came crashing back. Her laugh as a child, the sacrifices I made, the sting of her betrayal. Part of me wanted to slam the door, to make her feel what I felt when she cast me aside. But my heart still beat for her. Because no matter how much she hurt me, she was still my child. "Why now?" I asked softly. My voice shook with anger and grief. "Why come to me now after you told me I was nothing to you?" She dropped to her knees, right there in the hallway, clutching my hands because I was so stupid. I let money blind me. "Please, Mom, I need your help to fix this." Her tears dripped onto my skin, hot and heavy. And for the first time in days, I felt her walls break. But my heart wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. I pulled my hands away and whispered, "You threw me out like trash. Do you even deserve my help now?" Her sobs grew louder, desperate. And as I stood there, I realized the moment I had been waiting for had come. Not just for her, but for me. Because now I had the power, and I had a choice to make. She stayed on her knees, sobbing, clutching at the hem of my dress like a child terrified of losing her mother. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't recognize her. This wasn't the proud, arrogant young woman who had screamed that she didn't need me. This was my little girl again, scared, broken, begging. "Please, Mom, I don't care about the money anymore. I just want you. I need you." Her words should have healed me, but instead, they cut deeper. Because hadn't I been saying that all along? That love mattered more than money, that family was everything. I felt my throat tighten as I whispered, "Do you even know what you did to me? The humiliation of being thrown out of my own home by my own child? Do you know how many nights I cried, wondering if you even remembered me?" She shook her head frantically, tears splashing onto the floor. I know. I was blind, I was stupid. They told me you were holding me back, that I needed to start fresh without you. And I believed them. God, I was so wrong." I clenched my fists. They told me. Always them,
always someone else to blame. I wanted to scream at her, to force her to take responsibility and feel the weight of what she had done. But then her hands wrapped around mine, trembling, desperate. I pushed away the only person who ever truly loved me, and now, when everything's gone, you're all I have left. Silence filled the room. My heart thundered in my chest. This was the moment I had dreamed of, the moment she would realize my worth. But now that it was here, I didn't know what to do. I pulled away and stood tall, looking down at her. Do you know what it feels like to be abandoned by your own child? To look at the person you raised, the one you sacrificed everything for, and see nothing but coldness in their eyes? She flinched as though each word was a slap. Her sobs turned into gasps. I hate myself for what I did, Mom. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm begging you to give me one more chance. For a moment, I almost caved. My maternal instinct screamed at me to lift her up, to cradle her, to tell her everything would be all right. But I couldn't. Not yet. She had to understand the depth of her betrayal. You don't just get to break someone's heart and then crawl back when the world breaks yours. That's not how it works. Love isn't a safety net you abuse whenever you feel like it. She stared at me, eyes wide, lips trembling. And then she whispered, "What do I have to do, Mom? Tell me. I'll do anything." Her desperation shook me. For the first time, I saw humility in her eyes. The arrogance gone, the pride shattered. I knelt down, meeting her at eye level, my own tears finally spilling over. I don't want your money, your promises, or your guilt. I want you to mean it when you say family matters. I want you to understand that love is worth more than $33 million. She covered her face, sobbing into her palms. And in that raw, broken sound, I heard something I hadn't heard in years. Sincerity. I reached out, gently lifting her chin so her tear-streaked face met mine.
Her lip trembled. "I will, Mom. I swear, I will." And for the first time since this nightmare began, I let her fall into my arms. But even as I held her, feeling her shudder against me, I whispered silently to myself, "This isn't forgiveness. Not yet. This is the beginning of something fragile. Something she has to earn." The morning after that confrontation, I woke up to the sound of her quietly moving around my tiny kitchen. For a split second, I thought I was dreaming. My daughter, in my kitchen, barefoot, hair tied back, trying to make pancakes from the same old recipe I used to cook when she was little. She looked up when I walked in, eyes swollen from crying, and whispered, "I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything you said." I sat at the table, silent, letting her fumble with the whisk and burn the first pancake. Part of me wanted to smile at the clumsy sight, but another part of me resisted, because pancakes couldn't erase the nights I spent alone, wondering if she hated me. "Mom," she began softly, sliding a plate in front of me, "I know you don't trust me, and you shouldn't, but please, give me a chance to show you I've changed." I picked up the fork, but didn't eat. My voice was steady, cold even. "You don't get my trust just because you ask for it. Trust isn't a gift, it's earned, day by day, choice by choice." She nodded quickly, eyes brimming with determination. "Then let me earn it. Tell me what to do." And so I laid down the rules. First, she would cut ties with the parasites who had drained her fortune. No more fake friends, no more toxic advice. Second, she would face the debts she'd racked up, not run from them. If that meant working regular jobs, then so be it. And third, she would stay with me for a while. Not in the mansion, not surrounded by luxury, but here, in my small, modest home,
where humility would have to grow in the soil of simplicity. Her face fell at the conditions. For a moment, I thought she'd storm out, like the old her would have. But instead, she whispered, "Okay. If that's what it takes, I'll do it." And slowly, I began to see her change. She washed dishes without being asked. She apologized, really apologized, for the first time in her life. She sat with me at night, listening instead of talking, sometimes breaking down when memories of her reckless choices resurfaced. There was a night I'll never forget. She came into my room, clutching an old teddy bear I'd given her when she was 7. Her voice cracked as she said, "I thought money made me strong, but it just made me weak. You're the strongest person I know, and I threw you away." Hearing that nearly broke me, because part of me still wanted to protect her, to erase all her pain. But another part reminded me, she needed this suffering to grow. So I didn't comfort her right away. Instead, I asked quietly, "Do you understand now why I've always said love is worth more than money?" She nodded through her tears. "I do. I finally do." The weeks that followed weren't easy. We fought sometimes about her impatience, about her old habits creeping back, but there were also moments of healing, sharing meals, laughing at silly TV shows, walking together in the park like we used to. One day, she came back from a meeting with her lawyers, exhausted but glowing. "They're letting me settle the debts in smaller payments. I think I can do this, Mom." And when she said that, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Not arrogance, not entitlement, but hope. Bit by bit, brick by brick, she was rebuilding the bridge she had burned. And though I was still cautious, still guarding my heart, I felt a fragile thread of trust weaving itself back between us. But deep inside, a question lingered like a shadow I couldn't shake. Would this bond hold if money ever returned? Or would greed consume her again? When I look back now, it almost feels unreal. The mansion, the betrayal, the humiliation of being thrown out like I was nothing, and then just 3 days later, the sound of her broken voice at my door. Life has a way of teaching lessons no parent ever wants to see their child learn. I used to believe money was neutral. It could bring comfort, opportunity, maybe even a little happiness. But I was wrong. Money isn't neutral. It's a mirror. It reflects the best or the worst in us, depending on what already lives in our hearts. And when my daughter inherited $33 million, it didn't make her rich. It made her empty. For a while, I thought I had lost her forever. Not just her love, but her soul. Because greed changes people. It whispers that you don't need anyone, that loyalty is for the weak, that the ones who sacrificed for you are nothing compared to the power you now hold. And she listened. She believed that lie. But here's what money couldn't buy her: peace. It couldn't buy her loyalty or true friendship or the kind of love that stays when the lights go out and the party's over. It couldn't buy her a mother's embrace. When she came crawling back to me, broken and stripped of her illusions, I realized something important. I hadn't just been fighting to forgive her. I had been fighting to forgive myself. For raising her, for spoiling her, for wondering if my sacrifices had somehow made her blind to what really mattered. But the answer was right there, in her tears, in her willingness to start over. She had finally learned what I had tried to teach her all along, that money comes and goes, but love is what saves us. Does that mean everything is perfect now? No. The scars remain. Every time I see her, a small part of me remembers the night she threw me out like garbage. I don't think I'll ever forget it. Trust, once broken, never returns the same way. It's fragile, delicate, and it takes years to rebuild. But we're trying. And that, to me, is enough. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. Never measure your worth by the numbers in a bank account. Never throw away the people who stood by you when you had nothing. Because the cruel truth is, money may open doors, but it can just as quickly close hearts. In the end, my daughter didn't really lose her millions. What she almost lost was her mother.